Now arriving on track 1, the Lionel Nation Part 3.
Everyone loves that clickety-clack coming down the track. They can't ignore that all aboard, the smoke pouring out the stack. Hear that whistle blow as the train pulls out of the station. It's clear to me, oh can't you see, it's a Lionel Nation. Clouds of smoke are rising high into a big blue sky. Down the line, right on time, the train is rolling by. Everyone turns around and stares in anticipation. It's clear to me, oh can't you see, it's the Lionel Nation.
First stop, Las Vegas, for an impressive reproduction of the Lionel 1957 showroom layout. Next stop, Portland, where we see Fritz von Targen's new train room and T-rail layout. Then to Dallas, where we meet Roger Farkash, the main man behind Lionel's incredible new traveling display.
Engine shining gleam, that mighty sound and steam. Pistons pound around and round, just like in a dream. Another train pulls in and arrives at its destination. It's clear to me, oh can't you see, it's a Lionel Nation. It's clear to me, oh can't you see, it's a Lionel Nation.
Plus a lot more, including Lionel's second issue of Conventional Classics and Lionel's model of the Pioneer Zephyr. We're on an adventure, so let's get started. All aboard!
Over the years, Lionel has built showroom layouts to display their product line in action. These layouts enthralled visitors of every age and fueled a lifelong affection for Lionel trains that spans generations. In the sparkling city of Las Vegas, a town which looks like you're in the middle of a toy train layout, we find an amazing reproduction of the 1957 showroom layout. The man who built it is Steve Garofalo, who saw the real thing growing up in New York.
Welcome to 1957.
57 showroom layout was something I witnessed as a boy, as a 7-year-old boy initially, just toward the end of 1959, going into 1960. I actually went a couple more times between then and 61, when I think that was the last time it was available for public viewing in 1961. Being the first major layout that I had seen in New York City, obviously for a 7 or 8-year-old boy it was just incredible. It was built low to the ground, so one could go in as a 7-year-old and see the entire layout from your vantage point. Something that I never even dreamed that I'd be able to recreate. It wouldn't have the room, the funds, the skill, etc. Now in my 50s, 50 years later, I was able to recreate it. And I'm very, very pleased with the turnout. The original Super O layout was actually 32 feet by 16 feet. I didn't have quite enough room for that in my train room. If I did, I would have literally been wall to wall. So I basically compressed everything slightly. In my version, I'm 30 feet by about 13.5 feet. So I shaved a couple of feet off each side, tried to stay with the basic track patterns, geometry, and for the most part was successful. However, I modified the geometry slightly to let the various track loops interconnect. On the original showroom layout, the track loops were independent, and that was done for obvious reasons. They were running trains all day long. They did not want to go through turnouts. They did not want derailments. I wanted more operability on my layout, so I actually interconnected the loops. By doing that, I had to change the geometry slightly, but basically the 7 main track loops, the trolley line, and the short shunt line in the rocket launcher area are in the basic configuration of the original, as well as the underground subway line that is on the end of the table, end of the layout near the Triple Arch Viaduct and the waterway. Then, of course, I had Super O trains as my first set, so the Super O track was a big wow. And I remember three things distinctively: the drive-in theater, the baseball field, and the airport, all of which were static, there for display, not operational. When I recreated the showroom layout, I tried to recreate those three vignettes with some automation. Actually was able to automate the baseball field with the help of Willard Animations. I couldn't figure out how to make airplanes take off and land from a very short runway, but I did put some runway lights along that to give it some life. And the drive-in theater, with the help of Naeem Shah, who helped me build a frame for an LCD TV, basically kit-bashed an LCD TV, connected it to a DVD player, and made the drive-in theater an operational theater that I could show movies from the time. The original layout had running water, and I thought long and hard about recreating that here in the desert in Las Vegas. I was concerned about its maintenance. I was concerned about stagnation. I was concerned about mold. And I had read that the original showroom layout had a fiberglass lining and that tended to leak. And I decided that probably wasn't going to be a good idea. So I went the old-fashioned way, and I poured the water with EnvironTech's resin and painted it the very light, unrealistic Lionel blue in the spirit of the toy-like look of the layout. The original layout had a very elaborate highway system, actually had a couple of highways intersecting. I initially built this layout with just the one highway. I subsequently added a crossover highway, and I added a piece to the layout that was not on the original. I added a Cobra kit of the original Lionel post-war factory, and I put that just adjacent to the control booth. As mentioned, the only Lionel-type building that was on the original was the JLC manufacturing building, which was on the 1949 showroom layout. But I decided to add the Lionel post-war factory, even though it was not on the original.
Aside from the layout itself, the most recognizable feature of the 1957 showroom was the impressive control booth.
It's funny, when you think about the layout, you think about what's the nicest part of it, what's the part that you remember as a child. Ironically, I remember not the layout, but the booth. When I walked into the Lionel showroom in Manhattan as a 7-year-old, I remember seeing Jack Kindler. I didn't know who it was at the time, but I later found out to be Jack Kindler, who was really in charge of building the layout at the time and was operating it on most days. He was up in the booth, he seemed like a godlike figure, actually, up in the booth, which was pretty high above the layout, looked like an airport control tower, and he had it as control, I believe, 8 ZWs at the time, running the trains around. And I just remember being in awe of seeing the commander, if you will, up in the control booth. Would have liked to build the booth a little bit higher because the original booth was way up in the air, but that would have put the booth somewhere in my master bedroom, and I think that would have been a problem.
The large amount of illuminated and operating accessories on the layout pushed the 6 ZW transformers to their limit.
Many floodlight towers on the layout wanted a lot of illumination. I have a lot more light on the layout than Lionel did in the showroom in the 50s and early 60s, but I like the look of it. The downside is it takes up a lot of electricity. A high load with that many floodlight towers. I believe I have over 90 bulbs on the layout, illuminating the layout, and I regret a bit that I did not go with 8 ZWs. I went with 6 ZWs in my configuration, but I do measure the load on each of the transformers, and when I have everything cooking, and running 7 or 8 post-war sets with all the lights on, I'm generally pulling 8, 9, 10 amps per ZW, which is pretty much the max you want to pull on a ZW. Lionel accessories from the 50s rarely work consistently. They work on occasion. They are rather expensive to acquire in very good condition these days. I had some from prior layouts. I purchased some for this layout. But I have really nothing against the Celebration Series remakes of those, even some of the MPC remakes of those. They tend to work better. They look virtually identical. In some cases, coloration is a little bit different. But for the most part, they're acceptable substitutes, and I just thought it would be good to have a combination of the two for operability, and I didn't think it would hurt the aesthetics. I actually added a few more accessories to the layout than were present on the original to create a little more excitement and action. This layout really is about color, action, and a kind of a whimsical look at toy trains. It's not very scale-like. That is by design. I just love the look of it as a result. Super O track is an O-gauge track that Lionel released in 1957. Tried to really compete with the more scale market, and the HO market in particular, not in size but in look. It has plastic ties, simulated ties, ground ties, and the center rail is a bit more disguised with a copper bus bar as opposed to the tubular track, which literally has 3 tubular rails in parallel. So it's more realistic looking, and that's what I grew up with. It was difficult as a 7-year-old, as an 8-year-old, assembling that track, snapping it together was a bit challenging. But I managed to get through it, and I've always loved Super O track. Super O track looks great, and there are a lot of complaints about the center copper bus bar actually causing the center rollers to wear down unevenly. I don't find that to be the case. I think that's really overplayed. But the turnouts that were manufactured for the Super O line were done, I think, a bit in a rush, not really thought through well. For the switches, I have a couple of double crossovers that were custom built for me by Dick Reichert, kit bashing 4 Super O switches. For those and several other of the turnouts that go into the yard areas, I tied the signals to the switch circuit. So basically, the illumination of the signal will match that of the switch housing. Well, I have, in the last 20, 30 years, collected quite a few trains, all vintages, all eras, several manufacturers, principally Lionel. But I love them all. I display them all. When possible, I try to run them all. I don't like keeping trains in boxes. The biggest problem with trains, having this many trains, is storage space for the trains themselves and the shelves, as I am egressing to parts of the house that I probably should not be with my train shelves. The other challenge is keeping all the boxes, and I actually am now renting an off-site facility just to store the boxes because they of course increase the value of the collection. Oh, my first train set came to me in Christmas of 1959. It was a Virginian set, Super O set, and that was the beginning of it. I just absolutely loved that set. The Santa Fe Streamliner set with the various presidential candidates on the sides is a set from 1961, headed by the Santa Fe's. The last of the series of Santa Fe's, 2383, I believe, is the number. They look just as good as the old ones. One could argue some of the detail on the side and ladders and such is not as crisp as the original Santa Fe's in the early 50s and before that even. But I'm very happy with that set. It fits in the time period in which the